up, guys? Welcome back to Life Learners. Hope you guys are doing well today. What we're going to be discussing today is actually a really cool concept that Hodinkee came up with. It's the Hodinkee Talking Watches Tournament of 2020. It's a pretty cool concept from them, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. Then I'm going to go through each of the different days that everyone went through, all the rounds of voting for the best talking watches, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on who I thought would win each of those matchups. But before we get into that, if you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button if you like these types of videos. Also, be sure to check out some of our other videos where we talk about anything when it comes to watches. Also, don't forget to hit that like button for such a really cool concept that Hodinkee came up with. And let me know in the comment section below once you've done all that. Like I said, I'm going to go through each of the different days and go through the matchups and tell you kind of what I thought about each of those matchups. So just to explain what this tournament actually is. So if you don't know, Hodinkee is a really well-known watch blog, and they have this video series called Talking Watches, where they interview people with very interesting collections and hear about how they came up with that collection, what watches are in it, the stories behind those watches, and talk about watches with that individual. They've got quite a few episodes of that, and what they ended up doing was they created a tournament to figure out what was the best Talking Watches episode that they've hosted on their YouTube channel. So they created a tournament. It's essentially a single elimination, very simple bracket. I'll put up a picture so you can see it, but you can see all the lineups. With the earlier days, I'm just going to kind of briefly go over what the matchups were and who I thought would win and why. I'm not going to go too in depth. Once we get into the later rounds, I'll tell you kind of why I would go with that person's collection over someone else's, just for the sake of time, and I don't want you guys to have to listen to me drone on about every single matchup. So on day one, the first round for the A region, which is the upper right hand corner, the first was Aziz Ansari versus Waco. This for me was Waco. Waco has an absolutely incredible watch collection. He speaks about them very, very well. Very cool story about Richard Mille, and he's also at Revolution Watch, which I really love. So I would go with Waco for that round. The next was Jose Bautista and Daniel Dakin. I would go with Daniel Dakin. His watches are a little bit more towards my style. I know that probably is going to get a lot of hate because I know a lot of people like Bautista's collection, but that's who I would go with. The next was Reza Ali Ashadian and Brad Farmeri. I would go with probably Farmeri. He has a really cool, it's a very cool talk when he talks about his connection with cooking and how watches kind of go with that connection. I also really love his swatch, the completely white swatch that he has. So I'd go with that one. The next one is Dan White versus Jeff Stein. I would go Jeff Stein. He is by far one of the most, he should get a lot of credit for the amount of time and energy he's put into the vintage side of Heuer and Tag Heuer. So I really love him from a historical perspective, and his talking watches were just incredible. The next one after that was Spike versus Greg Norman. I'd go with Spike. Very cool connection with cars. I like how he kind of brought cars and watches together there. I thought it was hilarious how he said instead of setting the date, he actually just waits until that date coincides with the actual date on the watch. I thought that was kind of funny. Yeah, I'd go with Spike. So that was the end of day one. I'm gonna go into day two now. I've got my computer here just looking at it so that you know. There's 15 days, so I'm gonna try and do this as quickly as possible. Alright, so day two, we're going on to, I believe, the B region. First was Andretti versus Jack Nicklaus. I'm going to go with Jack Nicklaus. I know that's a very tough one to go with there, but Jack Nicklaus, his one watch story is absolutely incredible. I also love the fact that he auctioned it for a good cause. The next is Tony Fadell versus John Mayer 2. This is a tough one. I think I'm gonna go with John Mayer 2. John Mayer 2's collection kind of wrapped up, or kind of added another element to his kind of talking watches history. He's very involved with Hodinkee, and he had some very, very cool concepts in there. The next one is Jason Singer versus Shuhei Nishiguchi. I'm gonna go with Jason Singer. His contribution to Patek Philippe in general. He had some very unique Patek Philippe pieces. And when I say unique, I mean one of one Patek Philippe pieces. So that's who I'd go with. Then Moki Martin versus Ronnie Madvani. I'd go with Madvani. I like how he is collecting very different types of watches, not the normal case shapes, very unique pieces. So I'd go with Madvani. Ahmed Rahman versus Rene Bayer. I would go with Bayer, just from the history of the jeweler, and he's just a really cool guy, especially when you saw the old Submariner that they had. So that was the end of day 2. Day 3 is going on to the other side of the region. We've got Mark Hadaway versus Alton Brown. I'd go with Alton Brown. His collection is very simple, but really packs a big punch. Next is William Messina versus Fred Savage. I'd go with William Messina. His contribution to horology is insane. His collection is also very cool. He's got a really interesting way of collecting as well, which we can get into if he won that round. Then Todd Levin versus Matt Jacobson. I'd go with Matt Jacobson. Again, simple collection, very unique pieces, and a little bit more towards my taste. Then Raul De Molina versus Josh Bernstein. I would go with, this is a tough one actually. I'd probably go with Josh Bernstein on this one. No real reason, just a little more towards my taste. Next is Gary Statesnagard and Andre Iguodala. I'd go with Iguodala. I think he actually, for talking watches, he has a big contribution to actually talking watches this series, especially when it comes to sports collectors. John Elman versus Keegan Allen. I'd go with Keegan Allen. Simple collection, more to my taste. That was the end of that day. Moving on to day 4. Day 4, we've got Don McLean versus Morgan King. I'd go with Morgan King here. Cool guy. Talked about watches very interestingly. Really awesome collection. Also, just he's very optimistic, and I like that about him. Howie Kendrick versus David Robinson. Howie Kendrick for sure. Then Jonathan Ward versus Bethenny Frankel. This was an interesting one. I think Bethenny Frankel got a weird amount of hate for her talking watches. Jonathan Ward's collection is very cool though. This is a tough one. No, I'm not gonna give a winner for this one. Next was David Williams versus Phil Toledano. I'd go with Phil here. I like his journalism is really awesome. Also think his collection is pretty unique. Praz Part 2 versus Roger Smith. I'm gonna go with Roger Smith, just for his abilities as a watchmaker. Also, Praz's taste is not so much towards my taste level. All right, that was the end of day 4. And then we're going on to day 5. Day 5, I think, is the last of this round. Versus John Mayer versus Aziz Ansari. Simple one for me. John Mayer, hands down, started the series. The next one is Daniel Dakin versus Reza Ali Ashidian. I'd go with Reza. Then Eric Koo versus Jeff Stein. This is a tough one. I'm gonna go with Jeff Stein, just for his taste, for my taste. Then Spike versus Sotti. I'd go with Sotti here. His connection with music and connecting watches with music is really interesting. He's also got a very interesting Patek Philippe collection. So that's who I'd go with. Day 6, we're looking at John Goldberger versus Mario Andretti. Obviously, Andretti won that one. I'm gonna go with John Goldberger. His taste is so refined, and it's really a model for how I want my watch collection to look like. Jason Singer versus John Mayer Part 2. I'm gonna go with Jason Singer here. simply for his contribution, but I also think John Mayer's part 2 Talking Watches was it was great, but his first one was a little bit more impactful. Praz versus Moki Martin, I'd go with Praz. Rene Bayer versus Alfredo Peramico. Again, Alfredo Peramico's definitely another example of why I like. It's a model for how I want my collection to look like, and that's why I'm gonna go with him. All right, so let's go back to the bracket here. What we're gonna do is we're gonna go to the bracket, and we're gonna see where we are. So I'm going to start. I'm going to look at Sweet 16. I'm just gonna go from that point. So on the upper left-hand corner, we're looking at John Mayer versus Dakin. John Mayer is going to be my winner for this round. Obviously, John Mayer started Talking Watches, so was extremely significant in that respects. Also, his taste in the way he talks about watches is really how this hobby has really become more influential and more important to people. So he wins for me. Nothing wrong with Dakim's collection, but just better for me. Eric Koo versus Spike. I'm gonna go with Eric Koo here. His contribution to the watch is also incredible. Also, his story about his first Submariner was very interesting, so that's who I would go with. Alton Brown versus Matt Jacobson. I would go with Matt Jacobson. I think Matt Jacobson's collection is really unique. He knows what he wants, and he kind of has formed this collection that he doesn't really want to alter. So that's who I would go with there. And then I'd go with Keegan Allen on that last one. Alright, so back up to the Sweet 16. John Goldberger versus John Mayer 2. Obviously, John Mayer 2 didn't win that round that I spoke about. I'm going to go with Goldberger. Goldberger is, like I said, a model for my collection. He was the one who really got me into the reference 570 from Patek Philippe, and that's why I would go with him. Alfredo Peramico versus Martin. Peramico again, just because of his, again, huge model for me. He has 3 570s. He's also owned some very significant watches, like a 1518. Jean-Claude Biver versus Howie Kendrick. Jean-Claude Biver, the way he speaks about watches is absolutely incredible. His contribution to Tag Heuer is also extremely incredible. Roger Smith and Williams. I'm going to go with Roger Smith here. Roger Smith is obviously an incredible watch collector. We did an episode of traveling for watches on Isle of Man, and we spoke about Roger Smith and his contribution to watches, so check that out, but I would go with Roger Smith there. Okay, so now the Elite 8, we got John Mayer versus Eric Koo. John Mayer, unfortunately, is going to win that for me. His ability to really speak about watches is incredible. The reason why I wouldn't go with Eric Koo is because I find that the stories behind watches and speaking about the significance of a single watch is what makes it really special. Not saying Eric Koo didn't do that. I think John Mayer did that a little bit better. Then we've got Alton Brown and Statesengard. I'm going to go with Alton Brown here. Again, his way of speaking about watches and the story behind how I think it was his grandfather's watch, and he had it and it was stolen when he was at university. That story really, I think, made it apparent that these watches are very important to him and very significant in the store as well matter. Looking over on the right side of the bracket, we've got Jean-Claude Biver and Roger Smith. This is a tough one. I think the way I would go here is I would go with Jean-Claude Biver. I think his collection is too hard to not vote for. He has some very significant pieces. He also spoke about how he purchased a Patek Philippe for his son, and that one was going to be, and he actually had it engraved with his, he had the certificate of authenticity made out to his son, so I think that also kind of spoke to me about his collection. This was, in my opinion, this is what I wanted the final to be. John Goldberger versus Alfredo Peramico is the next of the Elite 8. This matchup is literally me fighting against myself here. John Goldberger's, his collection is varied, and you can see the time and energy he spent in educating himself about these watches and finding out about them. And I think Alfredo Paramiko's, while it is extremely significant, he's got some beautiful pieces in there. I think I connect a little bit more with John Goldberger's collection, and that's why I would go for him there. So the semifinals we have is John Mayer versus Stacengard, and then John Goldberger versus Jean-Claude Biber. For me, I didn't really connect with Stacengard's as much as I do with John Mayer's, so I'm gonna go with John Mayer here. And on the other side, John Goldberger really does speak to me a lot more than Jean-Claude Biber. So the final is John Mayer versus John Goldberger, 2 Johns. But I think the winner, being John Mayer, is a no-brainer. He really started the whole movement of talking watches, and he made us a little bit more accustomed to speaking about our collections. And I think that's why John Mayer would win this. But I think it would be such a close matchup. It would be like a half-point difference between John Mayer and John Goldberger, in my opinion, because John Goldberger also has an incredible way of speaking about watches, and he really, I think if John Mayer started talking watches, John Goldberger really accelerated it into what it is today. So it's a cool bracket. I hope this wasn't too boring a video. I kind of just spoke about these, but I think it was a really cool concept from Hodinkee. So thank you so much, Hodinkee, for putting this on. It was very cool to see. I hope we do this again in the future when we have double the amount of talking watches that there are. I think that would be a really cool thing, and we'll see if John Mayer still holds that title. So if you didn't do it in the beginning of the video, be sure to check out some of our other videos where we talk about anything that comes to watches. Really, we try to educate and inform you guys about watches, really, just because we are so passionate about it. So be sure to check out our other videos. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like this video if you enjoyed it. It really does help out the channel. And with that said, guys, hope you enjoyed this video, and until next time.